Penny Arcade's Ryan Hartman actually learned D&D on a live show in front of everyone. So I talked to him about what he learned about Paladins, Dragonborn, and how to create a character you'll like.
I'm getting the most screwed up education on what D&D is, because there's like this weird performance element. Like everyone else usually does this like with their friends in a basement where there's not like people watching you. So I'm like hyper cognizant of the fact that I'm being watched sometimes. Like from a narrative perspective, this is a blast. I'm loving it. And like being able to create a character and narratives and scenes and all that stuff's cool. But I'm also always like, I don't know how to react to things because I'm like, someone's watching this. Like there's a performance aspect to it that maybe on this sort of stage doesn't come into play when you have your own private game, you know? And this is all I know. This is the only time I've ever played. So I'm like, I assume this is always how it's going to be forever. I don't know. When I first picked Dinar's class and everything, it was actually Fail Hours on his guidance because he's like D&D head #1. And I kind of had the idea for the character, and then based on what I want to do with the character, like I sort of went backwards towards Dragonborn. And then Dragonborn, just in a min-maxing sort of way, will really work well as Paladin. So it's like I started at one point and worked backwards from that on some of his suggestions. And I did a lot of research on Dragonborn. And there's a lot of funny quirks with them that that really help, that are easy to play into. Like the racial superiority thing where they don't like anyone who aren't, they think dragons are the best, they don't like anyone else and all that sort of stuff. There's like fun stuff there. And there's like, they think dragons are the best, dragons think they are garbage, like some half human, half dragon garbage, and they don't like them. So that's a funny dynamic too. I'm excited for when we eventually run into a dragon. That's the thing too, like from the research I've done, and I have done a lot of book reading on this, is that like Paladins, there weren't a lot of variations in Paladin. It was either like lawful good or something really close to that or nothing else. And now they've expanded, especially by 5e, where you could basically be any sort of, like there's a lot of other variations of Paladin. But there's a lot of combat specking. I'm trying to find more and more stuff that's less combat with them, because we also just play a not combat heavy game.
What oath are you?
Oath of the Crown.
Why did you choose that?
It plays into the backstory pretty well. And I actually didn't know about the Oath of the Crown because that is a, that wasn't in the main book. That's in like an expansion book. And then after like the first couple games, I showed Jerry like this giant backstory I wrote. What was supposed to be like a short story is now like sprawling more and more. So I let him read it, and then we were like, well, the Oath really hasn't come up yet, so we can kind of just scratch that out and put Oath of the Crown, because when this does come into play, it works better into his backstory. I think what's been really fun and what's been really helpful is having, if you can get it, if you can find it, I highly recommend having a great DM and a lot of friends that you know and that you can play off really well. Just check those boxes and you'll have a good time. There you go. It's easy. It's like, no, what advice do you have to be rich? Oh, just find a bunch of money. All I can do is apply how I did it. I don't know if there is a best way, but like I really like reading. I really like writing. And so looking at this from like a narrative, I like to work backwards from the flaws. So I was looking for someone with a lot of flaws and then working backwards from that, how I wanted them to act, and then finding the race and the class. I went backwards from that. Some people pick the race and the class because they want to do cool stuff, and then they'll just kind of shoehorn the character into that. And I was like, all right, here's the character. Now, will he be a ranger? Or will he be a warlock? And then I found Dragonborn, and then I found Paladin.